1 mile in fog patches and showers early Friday, but improving to greater than 6 miles on Friday morning.
Stars shining bright above me. Night breezes seem to whisper that you. Sycamore tree. Dream a little dreamer.
Good day, everybody. It is Thursday, January 13th. Hope everybody's doing good. I know we've got some more weather moving across the U.S. and we may be fixing to get kind of hammered a little bit here where I'm at on the East Coast here in a few days. So, just hoping everybody's gets through all this weather unscathed as much as possible. So today, what I'm going to talk about, the other day I became aware of a particular podcaster that's very prevalent online. His name's Tim Pool. His podcast is called Timcast IRL, and he got what is called, the term is swatted the other day. If you have not heard of this term before, and I hadn't even heard of it myself until, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It is a tactic that people will use towards individuals, as it's basically a way to harass people for any number of reasons. But what they will do is they will make a prank phone call to emergency services like 911 dispatch kind of places, and basically lie to whomever you're speaking to that there is something going on at a particular address that would then cause the emergency services to send a great number of cops out to the location that they're wanting them to go to. And usually, I say usually, a lot of times the stories I've seen where it's been things that revolving around kids getting upset over like video games, kids getting upset with streamers or not liking streamers, or just, I don't know. All the reasons out there, I've heard any number of reasons beyond very direct reasons. But one of the things I'm going to talk about that happened involves the Twitter tags, the Twitter names. People, the at Sid, whatever name you've chosen to have on Twitter. The OG people that have been on Twitter so long, you've got these Twitter tags that I guess people really want. And a guy died over that because of somebody swatting him. I mean, it is bad. It is, it can be very bad. I mean, fortunately, not everybody has died as a result that has been swatted by people. But it's just, when you're sending cops out there under certain pretenses, an already scary kind of job that you never know what you're going to be walking into from one moment to the next. You're asking for trouble when you're calling up and making this a prank. There's been all sorts of prominent people that have been, in addition to the people, just the regular everyday people like me and you, but, famous people that have had this happen. Now, there's a lot of instances where this has happened to a famous person and they weren't home, fortunately, when the police showed up after they were swatted at their location. But, you've got, and this is obviously not a complete list, but this is just to give you an idea. I mean, people like Rihanna, Clint Eastwood, Selena Gomez, Magic Johnson, Justin Bieber, Charlie Sheen, Kris Jenner, Kim Kardashian, Ashton Kutcher, Simon Cowell, Tom Cruise, Miley Cyrus. I think Miley Cyrus even got swatted a couple of times. And then all the people that, aren't famous that have been swatted over time. And this isn't, it's still a somewhat new phenomenon. I mean, I want to say maybe, 10, 12 years, something like that since it's first been going on. I mean, it hasn't been like a super long period of time, but, it's been a while. But even considering, I mean, it'd been going on for a little while before I had even heard of it. And I know there's a lot of people out there that, I'll ask them, hey, have you ever heard of swatting? And they haven't heard of it at all. And I think, these days it's so easy, especially the last couple of years that have been just so messed up with, COVID and a lot of people maybe being a little bit more on edge because of that. And then, everything that was going on during the Trump presidency that had everybody wound up. And, and it's easy to get online and, you're going back and forth with people. And then, all of a sudden, who knows? I mean, you could be saying something to the wrong person, and now you've got somebody trying to swat you because they're mad at you because you said something about somebody they didn't like, And the charges for swatting, it can vary depending on what state you're in. It can be prosecuted on state levels. It can be prosecuted on federal levels, depending on the location of the people involved. If you're in one state and you're swatting somebody in a different state, I mean, that tends to throw in a lot of the federal stuff right there alone, just with that. There can be the charges associated with this can, whether it's state or federal, can fall under things like filing false police reports because you're calling in a prank call to the cops. Even attempted murder, attempted manslaughter, interstate communication violations, felony obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and then if you get, even multiple states on top of that. I mean, because you've got whatever laws there are in the individual states, plus then the federal laws on top of that. You can really put yourself in a world of hurt from a jurisprudence standpoint. Let's see, in a couple of the cases that have happened that are more prominent of the last, let's say, 4 years or so, in the end of 2017, a Wichita, Kansas police officer shot a civilian named Andrew Finch in his home. Andrew Finch, the citizen that was shot, later died. And he was an unintended victim after two players from a Call of Duty game online that were on the same team got into a heated argument over a $1.50 bet. I mean, and then on December 29th, 2017, 25-year-old Tyler Barris, if I'm saying that right, that was part of this this whole incident online, and then the eventual swatting. Mr. Barris was the one that was found to be at fault for causing the swatting to occur to Mr. Andrew Finch. And he was indicted by a federal grand jury along with two others. There was a hoax charge associated with this that carries a max punishment of life in federal prison, while other charges carry sentences of up to 20 years. And on March 29th of 2019, Tyler Barris got 20 years in prison for his involvement with the swatting of Mr. Finch. And then there was another instance in April of 2020 where a 6-year-old man that lived in Bethpage, Tennessee, his name's Mark Herring, he died of a heart attack resulting from when he was swatted. He had his Twitter tag, his Twitter name, his username was at Tennessee, the state of Tennessee. That's where he lived at. Well, okay, so the usernames are similar to anything else. If you've ever had to make your username, your email, a username for anything, especially with the console games, if you have to make your gamer tag and stuff, if you want to put in, let's say you want to use your name, and let's say you have a common name, Tom Jones, there may be 4,000 other Tom Jones that are wanting to use their names also. So to get the name, just the name Tom Jones without numbers and letters and other things in there with it, to differentiate it from the other Tom Jones names, to have the just Tom Jones, you're or anything that's going to be like that would be sought after by other people, for whatever reasons, whether it's their name, whether it's like in this case where his username Twitter tag was Tennessee. Things are going to be sought after by other people. They're going to be desirable. That are going to be, it's not Tennessee 3012. It's not Tennessee Knoxville or something like that. It's just Tennessee. And people will pay a lot of money for these Twitter tags that are desirable. There was his daughter said that he had people offer him $3,000 or $4,000 for him to sell his Twitter tag to them, which is just crazy. Okay, I mean, I've got a Twitter account, but I think the last time I was on it was probably 2 years ago. I mean, I don't really. I guess I don't understand. I don't understand it. That doesn't mean that it isn't a valid thing for people to be interested in or to be willing to pay that much for. But this man, he had the cops sent to his house, and what the kid told the cops, this kid had someone in England call 911. So you got this kid with a British accent calling 911, sending the cops out to Mr. Herring's house. The claim that he had shot, they're calling like he is Mr. Herring, which obviously they're not, but they're calling, saying they're Mr. Herring, and that he had shot a woman in the back of the head at Mr. Herring's address, and claimed he had pipe bombs at the front and the back door, and if the cops showed up at the house and tried to get in the house, he was going to blow them up. And so the cops get there. Of course, Mr. Herring has absolutely no idea what's going on. He's got his house, surrounded by cops, guns drawn. He's being instructed to come out of the house with his hands up. And the process of him coming out and everything, and of course, I think a lot of us, especially if you have no reason to suspect you're going to have the cops showing up at your house, you're pretty much going to be absolutely freaking out if you have, the cops showing up at your house in mass with guns drawn. And the man ended up having a heart attack. I mean, he's 60 years old, I believe it was. And so he has a heart attack coming out of the house at the instruction of the cops at gunpoint. And eventually they were able to locate the person responsible for this, that it was a 20-year-old guy by the name of Shane Sonderman of Lauderdale County, Tennessee. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy and only received 5 years in prison. That's it. And there were the kid that was in England that made the call to 911, he was a minor. And because he was a minor, they weren't going to extradite him to the U.S. for any charges or anything. So, he got off scot-free for his involvement because he wasn't in the country. Let's see. And also, Shane Sonderman had targeted at least a half a dozen other people to try to get their Twitter names, and they would bombard them with texts, with emails, phone calls. Sometimes it's common for, when they're doing this, they'll just repeatedly send pizza deliveries to your house. And that was the other, I guess, of all the things they could do to you, that's, would you rather get swatted, or would you rather have people repeatedly sending you dominoes? I guess, it's as irritating as that would be, but I guess that's still better than the cops showing up. And let's see, and so you've got the famous people that are being swatted on occasion, not always at home when it happens. You've got just regular people like me and you that are kind of getting in the middle of the swatting stuff, and it's also common for streamers, these game streamers on these platforms, that they get on and they play their console games online. Sometimes they're playing other people, sometimes they're just doing these game run-through kind of things. They'll get swatted, and because these streamers do like live streams where they're actually, it's like Facebook Live, where like you would have people watching you live, all over the place, wherever your subscribers are from, your viewers are from, and where people actually have someone swatted when they know they're going to be streaming live online, which is also completely crazy that you're going to get swatted in front of however many people that you got watching you doing something on your computer. But then the main the main thing that brought this, it's something that I'd been wanting for the last couple of weeks. I've been wanting to do a video on YouTube about swatting, and then the whole thing with the Timcast IRL podcast. Tim Pool came up where he had got swatted, and this guy, he is a very, like I said, very prominent podcaster. He's got like just on YouTube like almost 1.2 million subscribers just on YouTube. It's a very big podcast. And the last I watched where they were talking about it, at the time they were theorizing, of course they don't know for sure, that it was their guess that when they got swatted, it just happened to kind of coincide like just after they had Marjorie Taylor Greene, or MTG, on their show. And just because of her particular viewpoints and things like that, she's far right. She's got some the conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and is a Trump supporter and things that have kind of put her on people's radars as far as that kind of stuff goes. And they theorize that maybe since it did tend to coincide with her having just been on the show, that's at least it made sense at the time, but they didn't know. And fortunately, they had people outside that were outside the house where they do their podcast that were able to kind of defuse the situation before it got out of hand or anything crazy happened, fortunately. And I guess where he's at, I don't know where he lives, but he sounds like he's in a more kind of rural area where there's a lot more space in between him and his neighbors. So, and he was saying how there's like a certain protocol, I guess, they would tend to follow to make sure before they go in, and because there's so few houses, to make sure they're not going to the wrong house, doing this en masse cop presence, and with whatever reports they've gotten have gotten, saying whatever it is that's supposed to be going on there, to go to other houses, basically doing like welfare wellness checks, just to kind of, I guess, fill out the rest of the houses that were around also, that they did that. But this is just something I kind of wanted to bring to light for people that, my analytics through my YouTube is pretty much 100% of the people that have watched my channel fall into the 55 and older range, and so I'm fixing to turn 54 here pretty soon. So, there's some things that I'm kind of aware of, just because I kind of tend to try to keep on top of whatever things are going on. I've got an adult son that kind of can give me information once in a while too, about if there's asking me about things that if I've heard of it, if I know what's going on too, to kind of keep me in the loop on things. But this is one of those things that I think we all kind of need to be aware of, because it's so easy to get online and maybe you get into some sort of heated discussion, a verbal scuffle with somebody. You get in the comment section on a YouTube video or on a Facebook post or something like that, and unfortunately, these days you just never can tell. It's it's easy to think, oh, it's just the computer. Who knows where they are? They're not going to know where I'm at. Well, you never know if one of these days you might have somebody that's just kind of of that mindset that they would be willing to do something like this as retaliation. So it's just kind of something good to be aware of. So hopefully, not that any of this is necessarily going to happen, hopefully, to me or you or somebody or your neighbor, but it's one of those things that it's better to at least be aware of it, and even if it never happens to you and you never know anybody that it happens to, just so you can kind of keep your eyes open and be aware. So, again, thanks to everybody for if you've stuck around this long through the video and listen to what I had to say. I appreciate it. Hope everybody makes it through all the weather this week okay. And hopefully I'll have another video up within the next week or so. And if everybody would hit the YouTube trifecta for me, I'd appreciate it. Hit the like, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell and all that good stuff. And even leave me a comment down in the comment section. That would be fantastic. I don't get a whole lot of comments. It'd be nice to get some more comments once in a while from y'all. Just say hey or something. All right, well, I'll be talking to y'all here soon. Everybody be good and be safe. Bye.